How's it going, everybody? This is Jason Ostrowski, and welcome to another episode of the Everything Real Estate Podcast. We have a great episode lined up for you today. Last year, we had the CEO of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Fox Roach, and the Trident Group, Larry Flick, L5, as many of you know him, on the podcast to give his insights on the year ahead. Since it ended up being such a popular episode, we asked Larry to come back on the pod early this year to give his predictions on the real estate market for the year of 2024. So we'll call this aptly named podcast episode Larry's Crystal Ball for 2024, and we're going to cover where sales and mortgage rates are headed in the new year, what kind of appreciation or lack thereof we can expect in our area, add in some real estate hot takes, and touch upon some of the turmoil that's been happening in our industry right now. We're going to take a deep dive into the local housing trends, the shifts, and the strategies that could shape your real estate decisions in the year ahead. It's time to look into Larry's crystal ball and discover what the future holds, and we'll pick it up on the other side. Larry, welcome back to the podcast. We are always excited to have you as a guest, and I know our agents are always anxious to hear your take on the year ahead. I hope this will become an annual thing with us that, 10 years from now, we'll still be doing the podcast and we'll be still having you on at the beginning of each year. So we're going to call this episode Larry's Crystal Ball 2024 because we always market ourselves, right? So we're going to call this Larry's Crystal Ball. And of course, this is not just us guessing, but it's based on the information we have and the trends that we see. So I guess you can think of this as Larry's smart crystal ball. Maybe there's a crystal ball has Alexa built into it and it's Bluetooth enabled at this point. So either way, we are going to cover a lot of ground today. So my first question to you is, and probably the question that agents want to hear answered most, how does 2024 project to be in sales compared to last year or years prior? And where are we heading this year?
Well, first, Jason, I appreciate you having me on because last year's crystal ball wasn't too crystal, nor was it very accurate. I thought that 2023 would be a better year than it was. I thought we'd see a rebound in the second half of the year, which didn't really come to fruition as interest rates moved up as quick as we've ever seen. So thank you for the take two. I appreciate that. So, as far as next year, I'll share with you sort of where my head is, and I'll tell you this, that mortgage rates have always been an important part of the real estate market. But I think more so than ever, interest rates are critically important than they ever have been in the past. And I'll share with you why. First, I believe that there's a significant amount of pent-up demand across our entire marketplace, across the entire country, but especially in the Philadelphia marketplace. Lawrence Yun from NAR actually specified and called out the Philadelphia marketplace as having some of the most pent-up demand among buyers in the entire country. But I also think we have pent-up demand with our sellers. We'll get to that in a minute. Let's talk about the buyers first, right? So think about all the buyers that were desperately trying to buy a home in the second half of 2020, all the way through the early part of 2022. And lost out on multiple offer situations. I mean, how many of our sales associates that are listening right now had buyers that missed out on multiple bid situations? I mean, probably every single one of you. So for every buyer that had an offer accepted, there could have been 5 to 10 buyers that didn't and had to sort of start over. But when the rates moved from the 3s to the 8s, again, in record time, these buyers, they moved to the sidelines. And they've been sitting there, really, I think, over the last year to year and a half. And I think that they're going to return to the market when the rates hit the high 5s or even the low 6s, which I think, and I know we're going to cover this later, I think that's probably going to occur by the midpoint of this year. Rates have already dropped a significant amount in the last quarter, from the low 8s to the high 6s currently. So when these rates move even below 6.5 into the low sixes, I think this group of buyers is going to see the situation as rates not moving from the threes to the fives and sixes, but from the eights to the fives and sixes. And they're going to see it as an opportunity, and they're going to re-engage back into the market. Now, let's look at the sellers. I think we have a similar situation with potential sellers, right? We all know about the lock-in effect, right? 90% of homeowners have a mortgage that's below 4%. But we also have a record equity levels in real estate right now. So, these buyers currently have these super low rates. When current market rates were in the sevens and the low eights, no matter what their life circumstance, they weren't going to give up that rate that's in the threes to take on a rate that's in the sevens or eights. But these life circumstances continue to evolve. Take, for example, the family that maybe had one child 4 years ago and now has three. The house is getting smaller and smaller for them. But again, they want to hang on to that low interest rate. But when rates move into the low sixes, and let's call it the high fives, the gap between their current rate and the market rate is going to be half of what it was just 6 months ago. And I think at some point, the middle of this year, sort of this pent-up demand with sellers in these life circumstance situations, this lock-in effect and the life circumstance situation is going to intersect, and we're going to see inventory grow. So, for that reason, first of all, I think that the worst is definitely behind us. I actually think we're going to go on a 3 to 5 year bull market in the real estate industry, and it's going to start in 2024. I anticipate that unit sales will be up anywhere between 3 to 5% compared to last year, which I think is conservative. And then I also think that we're going to see some increase in average sale price as well. And I know we're going to cover that as well in a bit. And one item to note, mortgage applications through this point this year, through the end of January, are up 20% as compared to the same time period last year. And mortgage volume is up 31% compared to the same time last year. So we're already starting to see that uptick.
Well, I feel like I have to start doing sprints in my backyard. I know it's snow covered right now, but I have to keep myself in shape because I feel like it already feels different out there. Even within the past couple of weeks, almost since like January 1st, I have been getting inundated. I mean, this is a good thing, but inundated with buyer referrals.
That's great.
And I see a lot of first-time home buyers coming out of the woodwork. I see sellers reaching out to me for the reasons you just expressed. And I feel like I'm mentally trying to prepare myself for the sprint that is coming. The spring sprint, you could call it. It feels like shades of 2021 and 2022 again to me to start off the year. And many buyers seem to be flooding back into the market with those declining rates. So with seemingly more competition again in the marketplace, where do you think appreciation is going to land this year over year? And I know that's putting you on the spot because who knows, but where do you see that forecasted for?
Well, although I think we're going to see more homes for sale than we did in 2023, I believe that demand is going to continue to exceed supply. And so I think that we're going to see home prices continue to go up in 2024 as compared to last year. Now, last year we saw about a 9% increase in average sale price across our marketplace. I don't think it's going to be anything like that, but I think it's probably going to be closer to 2 to 4% year over year increase. Again, really two reasons. I think demand is going to continue to exceed supply. And, with interest rates dropping, that increases, home affordability is a function of price and interest rates. With interest rates dropping, it's gonna allow that buyer to maybe pay a little bit more than they would have if rates were at 8%. And we're gonna still have a competitive situation. And I think that you're gonna find buyers maybe paying a little bit more for a property than they would have if rates were at 8%. So I think that in our marketplace, average sale price is going to continue to increase.
And let's break it down a little bit more beyond just the region, right? Our footprint. Let's go into the city compared to the suburbs. Now, I know we have listeners in North Jersey right now. I'm just going to speak about the Philadelphia area because in recent past, we have seen a difference between, appreciation, sales price, days on market with Philadelphia proper, comparatively speaking to the suburbs. Do you feel like that is a trend that is going to continue? Will you find a leveling out between the two? How do you see that going in 2024?
You're right. I mean, the city of Philadelphia and the surrounding areas in Philadelphia County has trailed the suburbs over the last couple of years as far as appreciation. And I'll bring that back to the pandemic. The pandemic, this remote work situation, it didn't really exist before the pandemic. I mean, it's funny, as at our company as CEO, pre-pandemic, I often thought about, hey, what do we think about, hybrid or remote work for some of our, behind the scenes, non-agent facing employees? And we always stayed away from it because we were afraid that it would negatively impact our culture. And then the pandemic hit, if you remember remember Jason, when the pandemic hit, it was everyone's going to go home for 2 weeks and then we're going to come back into the office. 2 weeks turned into 2 months. It turned into a year. And here we are still having a lot of people working from home, a lot of people working hybrid in all kinds of industries. And that really changed things, for the city, because at that time, if you remember, there was a big movement exodus out of the city into the suburbs. Now that has started to reverse to some degree, but the city still continues to lag the suburbs as far as home appreciation. I think that gap is going to continue to close as years pass. But the fact is, a lot of companies are still embracing a remote working environment, and that is going to continue to increase value of homes in the suburbs relative to homes in the city.
It is fascinating, because, not to get too far into it, but like you had said, COVID had just completely changed the world, not only from a health perspective, but the way that we live our lives. And particularly in that work environment, brick and mortar, commercial real estate, all that stuff has changed drastically. So in 2024, much like 2023, sales and listing inventory will most likely be tied to where the interest rates are or will be heading. So we touched a little bit upon this, but let's get further into the mortgage rate side. By the end of 2024, where do you see interest rates landing? We talked about, being under 6 or being under 7. I find for buyers, the magic interest rate was always under 7% from what I'm seeing. But for sellers, it might be under that 6% that we're seeing. So how do you feel about rates? I know that the Fed is due to cut a couple times or projected to be. Let's get your take on interest rates and where you see them heading.
Yeah, I mean, the Fed, although they started a little late, let's take it back, 2.5 years when they were talking about the inflation just being transitory, right? So unfortunately, the Fed got started a little late as far as raising interest rates to combat inflation. So they had to move more aggressively than they've ever moved before. I mean, I think we had 3 or 4 months in a row where we had a 3/4 point increase to the Fed funds rate, which is something I've never seen before. So, but it seems to have done the job. Right? Inflation seems to be under control. And I'll share a statistic with you, Jason, that's interesting. The typical spread over the last 50 years, right? The typical spread between the 30-year fixed mortgage and the 10-year treasury bond is averaged 1.72%, like 172 basis points, right? That spread has increased dramatically. And as recently as 3 months ago, the spread was up to 3 points, right? The 30-year fixed mortgage was at 7.5. 10-year treasury was at 4.5. Okay, biggest spread that we've ever seen. That's only happened 3 times in our history. And every single time that's happened, interest rates have dropped dramatically after that, We've already seen that spread decrease. That spread is now currently 2.6 points. Okay. So for that reason, I think inflation's under control. I think that the spread between the 10-year Treasury and the 30-year fix is going to get smaller. So I think interest rates are going to continue to decrease throughout the year. And I think they're going to end up below 6% by the end of the year. Fannie Mae agrees. They just released a revised forecast for interest rates for 2024. They were expecting interest rates to land around 6.5% by year end. Now they're forecasting 5.8% this year and 5.5% in 2025. So I think rates are going to continue to decrease slowly and deliberately. I don't think we're going to see the threes again. We are going to see the fives. And like I said, I think this year is the beginning of a really strong real estate market over the next 3 to 5 years.
And I think to your point, I think it has taken mentally some time for people to wrap their brains around the fact that they aren't going to be heading down most likely to 3-4% again, and to adjust in their minds exactly what to expect. We always talk about setting the expectation in with our clients, and now I think we need to do that with the interest rates, and I think they have come to grips with that being the way it is. And now we look upon, say, 5% as a relative bargain, whereas before,
Sure,
on the way up, it was always, oh, they're going up so fast, so quickly, as you had said. So we just talked about some of the tailwinds that we have in 2024. What, in your opinion, are some of the possible headwinds that we may face, or maybe some of the unpredicted things that we may face in 2024 that could possibly work against us?
Well, inventory is going to continue to be a challenge. It's going to be very important for buyers to get, pre-approved, approved. Prosperity Home Mortgage has a fantastic, fully approved mortgage commitment that they can provide to a potential buyer so that when they make an offer, they're essentially a cash buyer. So I would strongly encourage those out there that are looking to purchase, utilize this approval product through Prosperity Home Mortgage. And when you go to make that offer, you're probably going to be in a competitive situation, okay? And one of the things that can put your offer ahead of others is having that fully committed loan approved. Again, it's like being a cash buyer. So inventory is going to continue to be a challenge. And then, affordability. Affordability across our marketplace, across the country, continues to be an issue. There are some areas in the country where home prices are coming down. It's not going to happen here. Our market, although average sale price has risen to the highest I've ever seen in this marketplace, but it did do it in a somewhat controllable fashion compared to other markets across the country. Same thing happened back, pre-2008. Our market didn't explode like other markets, and it didn't falter like other markets. And we're seeing the same thing now. So I would say, affordability is going to continue to be a headwind. And then, lack of inventory, it's going to create, I think we're looking again at sort of that frenzy that we've seen in the past years as these buyers on the sidelines are going to re-enter the marketplace. There's going to be a lot of buyers out there, more buyers than sellers. So, make sure that you are all set to go. When you find a home that you're interested in, be ready to move on it quickly.
I'm trying to get my people not just pre-qualified, but pre-approved.
Right.
And I think you bring up such a great point about that, is that has won me the deal last year in several cases. And so get your people with Prosperity, not just pre-qualified, get them pre-approved and ready to go. I think that's such a great point. You just brought up affordability. And to me, that is the number one issue moving forward, because we have so many millennials that are going to be in the market ready to buy. And case in point, I just put in an offer this past weekend with a first-time home buyer. And, if it were me, I probably, as a first-time home buyer, would be putting less money than they're putting down. They're putting down 15%. I remember when I bought my first home, I think I put down 10%. And if it was an FHA loan at that time.
Right.
Trying to get them a home, even with 15% down conventional loan nowadays, is very difficult when you are facing competition.
Yeah.
So, what in your mind, if anything, I'm not sure what we can do about it, but in your mind, is there anything that we can do about that affordability issue in 2024?
Well, I wish, and I'd like to see, some of the builders, building, more affordable housing in our marketplace. There are still, when you move, outside of the city into some of the suburbs that are, further out from, the central areas, there's a fair amount of land still available. And with the remote working environment, most companies are, allowing some semblance of remote working or a hybrid situation. I mean, studies show that, a worker that typically in a full-time job would maximize their commute at 45 minutes, they're willing to double that now if they only have to come into the office twice a week. So I would really like to see, some of the builders in the area start to build more affordable homes that maybe are on the outer suburbs that people could purchase that are working remote. I'm just not so sure that our marketplace is adjusted fully to what I think is going to be around for a while, remote and hybrid work environment. The other thing is, the Prosperity Home Mortgage has this past their P2P program where they will in certain markets, right, in majority minority census tracts, they'll provide a $10,000 grant that can go towards down payment, can go towards closing costs, can go towards buying that interest rate down. I mean, depending on the sale price, $10,000 could buy your rate down maybe 0.75%, could cover all your closing costs, or it could go towards down payment. I mean, this is an internal product that is exclusive to Prosperity Home Mortgage. We underwrite it in-house. It's our funds, so we don't need to source it out. And the process from application to closing is as smooth as it is for any other loan product out there. And sellers can also take advantage of this product. If they are selling a home in a majority minority census tract and they move outside, even if they move outside of that tract, they can take advantage of this program when they purchase a new home. So even if they're buying outside of the majority minority census tract, if they're selling within the tract, they can still utilize that $10,000 on the home they're purchasing. So I encourage our sales associates to talk to their Prosperity Home mortgage consultant, because that product is a great product to help first-time home buyers or sellers or anyone really, improve their affordability in these areas. And again, it's a product that is exclusive to Prosperity.
It's an amazing product. I wish that I had it. I had the first-time home buyer's tax credit, and I can't tell you how far that went for me in helping to buy my first home. This is more than that, and there's no strings attached to it. It's a great program if you qualify for it. So since I have our CEO here today, I want to ask all the hard-hitting questions and put you on the record. So since this is your crystal ball episode, Larry, what is one bold prediction or hot take you have for the real estate industry for the year of 2024?
So we all know about, these class action lawsuits that are out there. And, it started with the Stitzer-Burnett verdict in Missouri that, in my opinion, went completely the wrong way. People that are close to that case tell me that all the evidence was in our favor. The plaintiff provided no evidence whatsoever of any sort of collusion or working together to drive up the price of selling a home. I mean, zero. So, as you know, that Home Services of America is aggressively appealing that verdict, and we feel that we're going to be successful. But there's all these copycat class action suits popping up all over the place. So my prediction is that I think that the leading companies in the real estate industry are going to work towards a universal settlement on these class action lawsuits. Otherwise, nobody wins. I mean, I don't know how you pay a $5.5 billion judgment. I mean, at that point, is it 5.5 billion, 5.5 zillion? I mean, so I think that a win-win for the industry and for these plaintiffs I think it would not surprise me if at some point there was some sort of universal settlement reached.
That is a hot take, and that's breaking news on the podcast right now. So, let's get. I'm not going to
Let
get.
me be very clear. I have no inside information whether or not that's going to occur.
Yes.
That's
This is clearly your
one
opinion.
guy, from the outside looking in, saying this is kind of a common sense result that I would see happening.
Well, I want to talk about that not in the context, a little more, not in the context of getting into the weeds legally with what we're facing here, but as realtors, we hear what's out there currently, and there's a lot of hand wringing that goes on, and so things always change in our industry. You can go back to buyer agency and sub agency; that was a major change. You can get into some of the things through the years that we faced in our industry. Change is a constant. It's always going to happen. So my question is, for all the rumblings that we hear out there, does it really change how we're going to go about our business? How, from day to day, how we should approach things? How do you feel about some of that, like I had mentioned, hand-wringing that's going on out there?
Well, before I answer that, I'm going to share some statistics. Okay. So in the city of Philadelphia currently, and I'm just going to pick two marketplaces because I couldn't pull all 9 marketplaces, and we don't have time for that. But in 2 marketplaces within our footprint, the Philadelphia marketplace is currently 4,502 listings. Okay. 93% of those listings are being offered with a co-op payout of 2.5% and above. 95% are offering a co-op of 2% and above. Out of the 4,502 listings, only 10 listings are offering 0. So we'll move to some of the suburbs: Chester County, Delaware County, Montgomery County. 2,252 listings. 92% are paying 2.5% and over. 94% are paying over 2. And only 2 of the 2,252 listings are offering 0. That compares very favorably to pre-Missouri verdict. So not much has changed as far as co-op payments. Now, there's still a lot of noise out there, and it's very important. So right now, we just completed our Ignite Your Value series, where we work with our sales associates about showing your value to your buyers. And I think it's very important. Like, a sales associate would not take a listing without a listing contract. But we do take buyers around and show them homes sometimes without a really firm buyer's agreement. And I think that we need to focus a little bit more on making sure those buyer's agreements are signed and executed before we move too far down the line. But at the end of the day, it has been a lot of noise. And my advice to our sales associates is, it's good to be informed, but you can't be distracted by the noise, So do your best to tune it out and do what you do best, and that's sell real estate. And I like to use a terminology, it's heads down and chins up, right? So let's keep our chins up. There's a lot of noise, but let's keep our heads down. Let's keep working. Let's keep doing what we do best, and that's helping families buy and sell real estate. And, we do it better than anyone in the marketplace, and we do it better than anyone in the country, in the Berkshire Hathaway network, and anywhere in the country at all. And that's where we need to focus our energies.
I couldn't agree more with you. And so I want to end on a positive note here. Now, I always ask an offbeat question. You did not see this one coming. I just want to make sure you know.
Going off script, huh?
I'm going off script for my last question.
Jason, I'm an on-script kind of guy. Let's see how this goes.
All right. Well, last question.
Sure.
I believe that you went to Tulane University, correct?
I did.
So number one, how thrilled are you that we are going to the convention in NOLA this year? Back to where your alma mater is, where it all started for you. And 2, will you take this opportunity to sneak over to the LSU campus and toilet paper the Mike the Tiger sculpture sitting outside of Tiger Stadium?
Well, I did go to Tulane University. It's a funny story, Jason. So people always ask me, hey, why'd you like back then? Like people pretty much went to school like in their area, like most of my friends went to school in the area. And like, Larry, why did you go all the way down to Tulane University? The fact is, it's the only school I got into. And today, like these kids, they tour these schools, they see schools two, three times. The first time I saw the Tulane campus was orientation for my freshman year. My dad took me down there. It was like mid to late August. It was like 105 degrees. And I loved it. I got a great education there. New Orleans is a great town. It's a great, great town. Some of the, Nashville was probably the last great town we had the convention at. And New Orleans is a great town. There's so much to do down there. And you don't need to do it in the quarter, right? The quarter can lead to trouble. There's so much to do in downtown New Orleans, but outside of the French Quarter, or at least outside of Bourbon Street. So, we're gonna have a lot of information for everybody, make sure that everyone knows where all the places are to go. And as far as getting up to Baton Rouge to toilet paper the LSU mat, that's going to be a hard one because we're going to be super busy at the convention, and I'm really looking forward to it. A couple of things if you're down there. First of all, you got to get yourself a shrimp po' boy. They're awesome. There's a place. It's called. It's really on the outskirts. It's a complete hole in the wall, but they got the best po' boys. It's called Domilise's. Look it up. Domilise, I believe. And the second thing is you got to get a beignet. Now there's the beignet place, Cafe Du Monde, is right outside of the quarter. Here's the trick, okay? If you want to get beignets there, go to the takeout window. Because if you go to eat there, you're going to sit there forever. But the takeout window serves you immediately. They come hot right off the presses, and the beignets are fantastic.
Well, that is some great New Orleans information right there. And I'm definitely, I already said I'm leaving my suitcase half empty for the beignets that I'll be back home. And secondly, now that we've recorded this podcast, you now have an alibi, wink, wink, should the Tiger outside of Tiger Stadium have some vandalism to it. So, well, Larry, thank you so much. I always appreciate your time. And thank you for giving us some time on the podcast and getting your take for 2024.
Thank you for having me, Jason. It was great.
All right. I'll see you down in Ola.
Sounds good.
That was the podcast this week with Larry Flick. I want to thank him for his insights on the year of 2024. Here are a few takeaways that I had in talking with Larry. Number one, much like last year, I believe that this year is going to be very much dependent on where interest rates lie. And the good news is, according to Larry and many other experts, interest rates are predicted to fall in 2024. Although the average 30-year fixed conventional loan is hovering right around that 7% mark or right below it currently, we are predicted to fall below 6%, as Larry suggested in this podcast, by the end of the year. That is huge news for all of us and hopefully will spur a fantastic year for us in 2024. Number two, which leads me to my next point, don't just get your clients pre-qualified. If they are working with Prosperity, get them pre-approved. That could be the difference between your offer and somebody else's offer and winning that listing for your buyer. As I said earlier in this podcast, it made the difference on at least 2 of my transactions last year, and that was the difference between why my buyers got the property instead of someone who was just pre-qualified. It also helps to state your case to the listing agent when you're actually making your offer. So get them pre-approved. It's a big deal. Last but not least, Larry touched upon some of the turmoil that is happening in the real estate industry right now regarding its lawsuits and the changes that may be upon us in the years ahead. The bottom line is this: keep working on yourself. Be the best professional that you can be, and make sure that you not only have a great listing presentation, but a great buyer presentation as well. That's going to be very important moving forward. Well, that's it for the podcast this week. We will be back in another couple of weeks with a new topic, a new guest, and if you want to hear something that we haven't covered yet, please reach out to me, jason.ostrowski@foxroach.com, and if you haven't liked and subscribed to the podcast or left us a review, please do so. It helps us to reach more people. Once again, this is Jason Ostrowski saying stay safe out there, stay selling, and we'll catch you on the next episode of the Everything Real Estate Podcast.